Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the X-Force Global channel. I'm back out again with another Bitcoin daily update. I know you guys are loving these Bitcoin updates in video format, so I guess it's my duty to fulfill your wish of continued daily updates as much as my body is willing to provide. So without further ado, let's do a small recap of what we're seeing for Bitcoin's current flat structure that we've been talking about in the previous analysis, and what kind of local time frame price action that we're currently observing. So as I've mentioned, we are either creating an irregular looking or kind of unorthodox flat structure that could still be in play, as this is pretty much the only valid structure that I currently see for us building a possible 1-2, other than a possible kind of leading diagonal in the expanded variation form. So as previously discussed, our wave B is what is going to be giving us that subjectivity on whether you wish to accept that B pocket zone to be extended or not. I know a lot of people are accepting it up to past the 1.618. But again, we have seen a lot of these cases where not only Bitcoin, but other coins and stocks have also done the same thing. But again, there are instances where I have also accepted this, and that's why there is also a possibility that this 1-2 is still being created just due to the fact that we had a strong impulse off the lows. So we have to assume scenarios that are able to create or fit in within that narrative. So one example, for example, that I've been following and I've been personally tracking, there's been a case where we saw a stock. It's called Coupang, and it's identical in the price action where we saw a highly extended B wave, where it has also proven itself after the C wave has terminated in hindsight, with a deep retracement. If we take this example as our sole anecdotal evidence, there's a few other ones, but this is one that's looking very similar in the price action, then it's something of importance because it shows that markets are also still able to show strength after the point of termination of the wave C via this large, highly extended B wave of a flat. Now, will Bitcoin do the same? It's absolutely possible if we take into a few other market psychology perspectives into mind when taking into consideration for these wave 2 corrections. Now, the most common market psychology applications of wave 2s usually have been the highest variables when it comes to corrective patterns. And, Bitcoin is no stranger when it comes to the expanded flats and running flats even. Even these rare patterns are becoming a little bit more common than what we are originally known for in terms of where we're getting the sources from, most notably the Elliott principle, where it's saying that it's quite rare in nature. Still quite rare in nature, however, we're seeing a lot of these patterns start to emerge and people starting to show interest in these major Fibonacci levels that help build that market psychology and validate those structures even more. So as you can see here, we have a very similar 5-wave move into this primary wave 1. We have a 3-wave move into A, and then we have a WXY going into wave B, and then we have that finishing in another example of an expanding diagonal, which is a very great follow-up or educational aspect on what I was talking about of the leading diagonal, expanding diagonal. We have an ending diagonal, expanding diagonal for going into a wave C here. But we can say that our C wave is still in play here with everything into consideration, because we have seen this in other stocks and also cryptocurrencies. So I think this is something that many do not do. I think it's important to find reputable evidence of some bottom being created, even if we have to resort to comparing to other stocks and other kinds of important cryptocurrencies that show this type of expanded 1-2s. And there's a lot of altcoins also showing a highly expanded B pocket zone, and they have also played out going into new all-time highs and so forth. They're highly extended wave 3s therefore afters. And that is another expectation that you should be assuming after some kind of move of an expanded flat. You're going to see a pretty strong continuation to the upside for wave 3. Whether it's going to be finished as a flat or a diagonal, usually those will be followed up with strong extended wave 3s. So if we're going to stay on topic of for Bitcoin, and we're going to be sticking to this idea of this B pocket zone surpassing the 161A, and we're working on the C wave, which is looking like the narrative is still fitting in because we are finding some kind of 5-wave impulse now either being completed or near completed. That is something that we have to wait and just see how the price action plays out in the local micro time frames. But again, what we're going to be looking for here now, especially for C waves, we want to start using other momentum indicators like the RSI. The RSI is going to give us a little bit more clue on what the oscillation is telling us in terms of demand, seeing whether these zones of the major Fibonacci levels are going to be held or not. And one way we can do that is finding some kind of divergence between waves 3 and 5, whether it's from candle to candle. Well, that's the only proper way to do it anyways. But in terms of the divergence, usually you'll see waves 3 and 5 of the highest degree within that C wave, showing around about an 80% in success rate or so from my backtesting personal trading for the past 15 years. You will see a divergence between waves 3 and 5. And we are starting to see a little bit of that clue that maybe there's a little bit of demand here based on the normal Fibonacci retracements. Now, we tried to get supported on 382, didn't necessarily hold. Whether we're creating another wave 4 of some kind of expanded variation of that sort. Looks like wave 4 is already completed. It looks like we are going for another 5th wave. So I think that 618 zone is going to be very crucial on how Bitcoin's going to be playing out this flat. The 786, even the 886, just like we saw for Coupon, excuse me, we can see that the 886 and the 786 was followed by that deep retracement after that B wave and going into that C zone as well. That, a lot of people thought it was going to be breaking the lows. But this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about, how the price action can continue to work for some kind of flat, even with a deep retracement wave C. So that's one way we can look at that. And again, most notably, the 618 and the 786 is going to be one of the more common targets, especially for wave 2 in the current cryptocurrency markets. And as long as those zones are protected, since we had the assumed impulse off the lows for this wave 1, we can still say that this zone is just a collective sideways pattern until proven otherwise of breaking the regional lows at 59K. Now, that is the first scenario, still working for that possible 5th wave. We could be working for, a slightly deeper with wave 5. We'll just have to see. Maybe we're working in a more extended wave 3. We'll have to just see with the data given. But currently, the data given, we do have a pretty clean 3, 4, 5 being in the making. Whether wave 5 is going to be completed here is just up to the markets, and we just won't know. However, the main Fibonacci levels are going to be at least having some kind of price reaction of some sort, unless we do get some kind of major black swan event. So that's the first scenario, the flat scenario again. Nothing really too much to expand on that idea. Now, we do have the idea of the expanded variation of the diagonal. Now, this is starting to lose its validity, not just due to, the validity of the wave counts. And I think this is importance of topic to talk about because there are a few people, or actually plenty of people, who still aren't being updated with or up to date with the current rules and guidelines for how an expanded variation or even the contracting variation. We're still seeing a lot of people working with the old rules. So if we take into account for this scenario, the most important notable wave counts in this variation in relations to the new wave rules and guidelines for an expanded variation is that I have also shown here of the old rules, where the old rules says that in the expanding variety, wave 3 is always longer than wave 1, and wave 4 is always longer than wave 2, and wave 5 is always longer than wave 3. So as long as we meet these last two expectations and this expectation where wave 5 always ends beyond the wave 3, then it's valid, because within the new rules, as you can see here, a lot of the rules have also moved into guidelines based on operations and also the observations that have been probably foreseen since every single update. They have seen probably new wave counts where the expanding varieties and contracting varieties, the wave 1s, don't have any wavelength requirements, meaning that there could have been a lot of diagonals happening with wave 1s highly extending with no real wave requirements. It's just an observation. Now that rule has come back down into a guideline where the expanded variety, or even the contracted variety, where wave 3 is usually longer than wave 1. So if you look at the expanding variety that I have here, wave 3 is shorter than wave 1. Okay, now that's not making it invalid. I think that's where a lot of people are misinterpreting this idea. As long as wave 5 is assumed as the longest wave, this idea, although could be less likely, is still valid. And the reason why I like this idea being put into for as an educational perspective is that because it also fits into what could be possibly a larger ABC instead of a 1-2 for this wave completion of this expanding variation. So I've also applied my own evidence on why I think the market inefficiencies exist, and why we also can accept the flat structure I shared earlier, where the B or X wave of an expanded flat variation could go beyond the 138 Fibonacci extension. So remember, as long as within the expanding variety, wave 3 is usually longer than wave 1, it doesn't have to require that specific a guideline, and that's now a guideline and not a rule. But we have to still obey the idea that wave 5 is going to be longer. Now, if that's the case, we have to really move out of here. Now, I have evidence for this as well. So if we look at BTC USD charts on spot, there has been a lot of instances where Bitcoin has created expanding variations. I've applied them quite a bit in the price section, especially when tops were being created. And we can see here we had a very clear expanding variation being created. So I think that this is one idea where expanded variations could really extend, and as long as it's meeting the wave requirements, then you're absolutely fine. Where wave 1, you would usually observe it as the shortest wave, but it doesn't have to be the shortest wave. And there has been many instances where I've applied possible expanding variations. We've had an expanding variation here on the micro time frames. We've seen, even within recent price action, I've seen where this could have been an expanding variation as well. Wave 5 is still the longest. Wave 3 is, still longer than wave 3, but still this idea where we had the expanding variation for the current price action creating a wave 1, absolutely possible. The only thing that makes it invalid is breaking below the territory of wave 2, which would deem it invalid. So as long as we stay above these regions, we can still be considered an expanding variation, just due to the strong overlaps that we're seeing within the markets. Now, XRPL is also another clear example. There was no other way to count this other than seeing this as some kind of expanded variation, right? We've seen XRP create endless types of expanding variations. So the evidence that is found in cryptocurrencies for expanding variations, it just works with the distribution ideas of cryptocurrency markets. It's so volatile, and the volatility is the only way to kind of interpret it as some kind of leading expanding diagonal. Now, I think that's the kind of major updates for the current price section. I still think that we're working in the larger ABC, where wave 4 is corrected, and we're working for either a 1-2 as a flat, or we're creating some kind of leading expanding variation. Now, I think there could be different ways we could say this. If this is counted as some kind of, 3-wave, where maybe we can say that this was an ABC. I don't want to say that was an ABC. We can even say that this was some kind of WXY maybe. I'm not sure if that's possible for what we're seeing for a future scenario, but if that is the case, and we're saying that this is some kind of 3-wave, what other corrective patterns can we say? Well, the only way we can fit that in is most possibly as some kind of future diagonal, and I'm not sure if that's going to be the case. So too early to call, but those two scenarios right now with the current price action is exactly what I would personally see, either as a flat, where we're now going to be working within this idea, or the leading expanding variation, which is pretty deep right now. But again, we've seen XRP even go that deep and still validate it and go even way higher than it previously anticipated. So that's the second idea. And then the last idea is that we're working in a 1-2 3, 4, 5, going into a wave 1, and then going into a wave 2 of some sort. And we'll know by then if this is a corrective pattern. We can start taking that into consideration even more, that the bearish scenario is going to be in play. So we got to be very careful with that idea as well. But for now, just based on the evidence, since we've broken out of this, we still have to just consider what possibilities we have, maybe that 1, 2. And just like we saw for Kupang, like I said, a very great example is this and this B pocket zone expanding further, exactly just like what Bitcoin I saw. And then that C wave going even as deep as the 886. So there's still hope for the bulls is what I'm trying to portray here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it. I think I'm going to try and keep this short. I don't want to make it too long. So hopefully that was helpful. If you guys are interested in joining the Xworks Global Discord membership, the link is in the description below. Please don't hesitate to contact me. If you're not following me on social media on X, or formerly known as Twitter, please do follow me. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.